I've done weddings where everybody is bilingual or can understand both languages, but it was like grandma. Grandma didn't speak any English. She doesn't
Right.
understand any English. So we're gonna do a bilingual ceremony just so that grandma, because grandma is so special to them,
Right.
as she should be. And so they wanted to make sure that she felt included. And so we went ahead and did that for her.
So on today's show, I have Alex Lopez, who is a bilingual minister or officiant from Peachy Keen Unions. And today we're going to be talking about what that means, maybe why you should consider it, and kind of some ins and outs of it. So you ready to get started, Alex?
Sounds great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So just the first question, who should have a bilingual ceremony?
So I think who should have a bilingual ceremony really depends on the couple themselves. Let's take me, for example, though. Like, I am bilingual. I speak English and I speak Spanish. I have family that originates from Mexico and also from a country right under that called Guatemala. Now, my immediate family, I talk with them regularly. I know where they're at with English and with Spanish.
Right.
And so I know that some of my family members, they are good, they're fluent, they can speak both languages. Some of them, they don't speak both languages, but they can understand
Right.
what is being said in English, even though they don't speak it. And so really it's like, depending on the couple, they would have to, look through their guest list and see, hey, is there a big amount of people, like a big group of people that do not speak English and do not understand English? And should we consider making this a bilingual ceremony so that they feel included and they can understand what is happening throughout the entire ceremony? Because it's a big day, it's a big thing that's happening there, and you want to make sure that everybody feels included in that.
Actually, I'm going to take it back one step further. Bilingual, does that mean, actually tell me what that actually means? Because now I'm thinking maybe I don't know what it means. Maybe, are you doing some in English and some in Spanish? Or is it only... So tell me what it means. Yeah, actually, it's probably the best place
definitely. Yeah, absolutely. Let's take it from the top. So like with a bilingual ceremony, I do a little bit of all of them, just depending on what the couple's needs are, right? If, let's say, the couple and all of their guests, the majority speak Spanish only, and they would just prefer it to all be in Spanish, we'll do a Spanish ceremony. And then vice versa. If everybody is cool with English, we'll go with an all English ceremony. But a bilingual ceremony is where you have really like a mixed bag of people. Some are really fluent in English, but not in Spanish, and vice versa. And so you bring someone on board like me who is bilingual, who can guide you through that ceremony in both languages. And so during the ceremony, we'll be bouncing back and forth between both of those languages as we go through vows, as we go through ring exchanges, and ultimately pronouncing you as husband and wife.
That is so cool. Okay, so let's dissect this just a little bit. So are you literally like sentence for sentence, or is it really kind of it's a
yeah, so
I'm
for
sure
the
it's a
most
skill,
part,
like like this makes sense to do this way, and explain it.
So it's kind of a mix. For the most part, I would say it is. I'll say my sentence in English, or like a short, I don't know, maybe just a short blurb that I will do in English, and then I'll rewind it back and say it in Spanish so that everyone is aware. Now, there are parts where I know, like through my experience, that I can kind of tweak things here and there to, like, let's say, for example, vows, something that I really like to do. I'll ask the couple, hey, who between the two of you is better with English and who's better with Spanish? Because what I want to do is ask one of you those vows, do you take this woman to be a lawfully wedded wife in English? And then the other person, I'm going to ask you these exact same questions, but in Spanish. And so that way, we're not double track, repeating myself too much. And everybody in the process of that understands exactly what is going on.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of, so it's like a little mix of both.
Okay, that that makes so much sense. And actually, I love it. I think it's so great. And everything you've said so far, because many people have folks from, all walks of life and maybe even just prefer Spanish, or maybe they even have like this like kind of heritage you mentioned. Like maybe actually everybody does speak English, but maybe there's like that element where like, we have this heritage. That's kind of cool too. So,
Yeah,
okay.
definitely.
Anyway, I'm glad that I asked that question because that makes so much more
Yeah, we
sense to
want to
me
be
now.
thorough.
Yes. So actually we kind of went over this just a little bit, but if you want to go into what does a bilingual ceremony look like a little bit more in depth, we definitely can.
Yeah, so there's two ways to go about it if you are planning your own bilingual ceremony. There's the route that I just kind of went over a little bit, where it's you bring on a wedding officiant who is bilingual like me, and they'll be tasked with taking you through the ceremony. And just, I like to make it clear to my couples, like, hey, just so you know, I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between both languages. Some, because you understand both languages, it might sound a little repetitive at times,
Right.
but like I promise, like it's just so that everyone is included and everybody knows what's going on. Another way that you can go about a bilingual ceremony is if you have someone who is a wedding officiant or minister who only speaks one of those languages. Let's say they only speak English, but they don't speak Spanish. You want a bilingual ceremony, what you can do is you can bring an interpreter on board who will then do the translating for the minister. I've seen that been done effectively in the past. I would advise, if you were to go that route, you want to make sure that both the interpreter and that minister are communicating beforehand, that they are on the same page. Maybe the minister can share, some of their notes, or if they have a script already prepared, if they can share that with the interpreter ahead of time. So that way the interpreter can now review that, translate it into Spanish or whatever the language may be, and then be able to effectively just flow with that ceremony rather than trying to figure it all out on the fly.
Right.
If you try to do it all on the fly the day of, it's 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to go pretty badly. So you want to make sure preparation is very much key. I mean, with anything that you do regarding weddings, it's a really important day. So you definitely want to dedicate that time, make sure that the translator and your officiant, your minister, are on the same page here. So yeah, so those are the two ways. You can bring somebody else on board, or just have somebody who is well versed in both.
So is it if you have an interpreter, the interpreter does the same thing basically. So the English speaking minister, for example, would pause.
Yes.
Got it.
So that's why I said that's only very important for them to connect prior to. If you're lucky, they may have already worked together in previous occasions, because that way they can kind of get to know the flow of each other and when the pauses will happen, so that the interpreter can then jump in, rather than cut in and completely throw the minister off. So you will definitely want to do your due diligence there and make sure that those two people, if you're having two separate people doing this, translator and minister, that they are communicating and they're on the same page, so that they flow nicely.
Yeah. It makes sense to have one person doing it. That's what I understand.
Yeah.
If you have that,
if you can find somebody who can just do it.
Yeah,
exactly. If you have that luxury to bring on somebody who can do it in English and Spanish, all the better, because I know when to pause from speaking in English and rewinding it back and going to Spanish, and making sure that I'm touching on everything that I need to touch during the ceremony. I really wish I could show you the inside of my brain when I am doing a bilingual ceremony, because it's just like there's like a channel in my brain that goes from like English to Spanish, and it's just like flip flopping around all throughout.
I imagine I'm super impressed, Alex. It seems like it could be a really challenging experience for you, but I mean, with being a professional and having the experience, it really makes kind of an expert in this area, where it's like you do this and people don't have to worry about you. You kind of like clunking through it, basically. It's not your first rodeo.
Yeah, definitely not my first rodeo. Growing up in my home church, it was a Spanish speaking church, and my pastor at the time was like, hey, we're having a lot more of a younger crowd that grew up in the country, and their dominant language is English. And so like we really are trying to reach out to them as well. So would you be interested in translating? And I had zero experience in that, and so that sounded terrifying to me.
Yeah.
But you know, I was like, you know what, if you want to give it a shot, let's give it a shot. And so it was like some trial and error at the beginning there. It was a little clunky at first, but over the years, that's how I mastered it, was just from translating my pastors'
Really listening
sermons,
and then
and knowing when to hop in, when's the right time to come in and say say what he has just said, but in English for the teens so that they can understand. And so,
wow.
and then just taking that skill set that was developed
Right.
there in the church and now bringing it to the wedding ceremonies and be like, oh, okay, so now I just got to do that, but apply it to a wedding. And so it's been a pretty fun transition to do that.
That's pretty cool. Okay. And then we've already kind of like touched on this too, but who should have a bilingual ceremony?
Yeah, it should. I mean, definitely, our couples that either are bilingual or one just speaks one language, one speaks the other, like strongly. Like you got to consider your guest list definitely, and see who it is that could benefit from this. Like for example, with my wedding, it was a small intimate wedding, like 4 guests, and one of those was my mother, and she mainly speaks Spanish, but she understands English. And so I felt at peace of just having an English speaking ceremony because I knew that she knew what was going on. But if it was maybe like a grandparent who, the older generation, they grew up in a different country, different background, only know Spanish, do not know a lick of English. If you have people like that in your wedding party, then you should definitely consider having a bilingual ceremony because like I said, it's just such an important day, and you want to make sure that everyone that's there is having a great time and feeling included. If you've ever been in that position where you are the only Spanish-speaking person in a room full of English-speaking people, it can be intimidating. You could feel very like on an island and not feel included. And so if you have those people in your wedding party, wedding guests, definitely consider it for them so that they can feel included and celebrate along with you.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest point, is that this is a celebration. And if you took the time and know that these people are important to you and you want them at your ceremony, I think that it makes total sense to consider this, even if it's one person. I think it just creates that much more intimacy and
inclusion.
Inclusion, 100%. Yeah.
Letting everybody be a part of it. Be there.
Yeah. I think that makes it's so great. I am like, I apologize. I was actually thinking, okay, yeah, Alex is going to talk to me about being bilingual. I was not actually thinking, I was thinking it was, you didn't really have a choice. So I'm so glad that we had this conversation, because for me, I was actually thinking like, and forgive me, I'm just like blown away that I didn't realize this until now, but like you can have an English ceremony or you can have a Spanish ceremony.
Yeah, definitely.
And this is great because you can actually do both and include everybody in your wedding celebration for your day. So I love it. And now, how much extra time does it add to your ceremony doing bilingual?
I'd say maybe like roughly another 5-ish minutes, I'd say.
Really?
It varies on a couple of different factors, what are we including in the ceremony? Are there going to be any unity elements, like that sort of thing? Not as much as you would think. I can't remember, like I don't know the exact like numbers and times. I haven't had someone with a stopwatch or anything like that to time me, but I've never felt like it went way longer than it should,
Right.
Like we're able to touch on everything. Like I said, I found different pockets within my ceremony where I can change things up a little bit to where it's still bilingual and everybody still knows what's going on. But we haven't, like, I didn't have to like fully repeat every single thing that I had just said. So if definitely with experience, I've been able to pick up on little areas where I can do that to make this effective and not feel like it's running too long, and just make sure that we hit all the points that need to be hit for your ceremony.
Yeah, I think that's great. So what kind of I understand and what I hear is that kind of some of your main tips would be if you're going to have guests that are Spanish speaking or speak another language, it doesn't necessarily need to be Spanish, but if they speak another language and that's their exclusive language, it's very important to have somebody that can officiate your wedding that can speak both. I know you
Yes.
mentioned that you could have an interpreter. I think that that would be like second best option, but
Right.
it sounds like anybody just for inclusion purposes and that intimacy, it makes sense to have somebody that can be bilingual that's
Yes,
officiating your
absolutely.
ceremony in whatever language that might be. And then secondly, like I said, second best would be the interpreter.
Yes, absolutely. And if you're going to go that route, make sure you do your due diligence,
Right.
and make sure that these two people are going to be, very tight at the hip and are on the same page when it
Yeah,
comes
that
to
seems like
the
it would
ceremony.
be a bit of a train wreck if the other main thing is you got to communicate when you're planning your wedding. So you have to
Yes,
communicate with your vendors in general, but this seems like an imperative step that
right,
if it's not communicated with one party or the other, it's not going to be that cohesive and feeling like that organic and natural feeling ceremony,
right.
which Alex, by the way, is excellent at. He's very organic and is like in the moment. And I think that that's something that's, truly unique to your skill set. And
Oh,
being able
thanks.
to do that and being bilingual is so awesome. I just think it's like so great.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I don't take for granted one bit. I feel blessed to be fluent in both of those. And the way I grew up, it shouldn't have stuck with me because growing up in this country, I just watched TV in English. So, like for all intents and purposes, I should have forgotten how to speak Spanish long ago. And somehow, some way, it's still stuck into my brain. Probably because I need to speak some Spanish to effectively communicate with my parents.
Yeah, yeah.
Is the main part. Now that I have kids, I definitely like, make it a point to them and let them know the importance of being bilingual. I'm like, this is so helpful to so many people, so many couples that I've been able to serve in
Right.
the past. And I want you to be able to know both of these languages because it is so helpful and it'll help you out in the future. It's like super
Oh,
important. Yeah.
100%. I guess just the premise is communicate.
Yeah.
If people speak other languages, make them feel included, offer at least some form of interpretation. Best bet is to hire a bilingual officiant or minister. And yeah, I think that that's like really the
Yeah.
bones of it.
Definitely like start with like those couples that are, starting to plan
Yeah.
their wedding day. Like definitely take a head count of your guest list and be like, who here is absolutely fluent in both languages? Who might need a little bit of help here?
Right.
And who would benefit from this?
Hmm.
And then kind of that'll help you make that decision
Yeah.
real quick.
And
Just
like
start with
I
your,
said, if it's even just one person, it's all that much more special to
yeah.
them and to everybody there that you have this service
Oh
offered.
yeah.
So
I've done weddings where everybody is bilingual or can understand both languages, but it was like grandma. Grandma didn't speak any English. She doesn't
right,
understand any English. So we're gonna do a bilingual ceremony just so that grandma, because grandma is so special to them,
right.
as she should be. And so they wanted to make sure that she felt included. And so we went ahead and did that for her, even just
Yeah.
for the one person. Like I think it's definitely worth visiting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Alex. I appreciate you taking the time, well, to honestly educate me on what bilingual ceremony is because I was clearly missing the mark. But
No, you're
I
good.
love it. I think that that's a great thing that you do and an amazing service. And I think that everybody should consider it if they have even just one person that's going to be
Yeah.
attending their ceremony that they feel might be better suited for their primary language. So,
Yeah. Absolutely.
so anyway, well, thank you again. I'm sure we'll have another chat in the future, but is there anything you'd like to leave us with?
No, I think we pretty much touched on everything
Okay.
in regards to a bilingual ceremony. I hope I wish all those couples good luck in finding that right officiant. With Peachy Keen Unions, that the group that I'm a part of, we actually have two other ministers officiants who
Mhm.
are also well versed in both languages, and they can also perform bilingual ceremony. So there are definitely people out there. Just you got to look for them.
Right. And I think that that's also another note that like it might not be in your best interest to have somebody that this will be their first time attempting this kind of ceremony. I think it's great, you know, for seamlessness and like that organic nature of a ceremony. If you do have somebody that is experienced with this and they understand the flow of a ceremony and they understand how to interject when appropriate, even if they're doing their own pauses for this kind of thing. So
Yeah.
thank you, Alex.
Yeah. Thank you, McKenzi. Thank you for having me on. Appreciate you.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right.